So Tracy Tollmann is with the UNFCCC Secretariat, and Tracy has over 20 years of experience working as a process management specialist with the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in Bonn, starting at Conference of the Parties in 1999, which is, I think, extremely impressive. Most recently, this includes coordinating the technical dialogues of the first global stocktake. Other UNFCCC positions that Tracy has held include working with the subsidiary body for implementation, the ad hoc working group on the Kyoto Protocol, the ad hoc working group on the Durban Platform for Enhanced Action, which culminated in the Paris Agreement. And Tracy has also supported negotiations on Article 6 under the convention now known as Action for Climate Empowerment, ACE, an acronym that she has personally coined, as well as the Momentum for Change initiative. Tracy holds a first-class honors degree in environmental science and a postgraduate diploma and certificates in environmental policymaking and environmental management from the Open University in the UK. Thank you so much for joining us, Tracy, and over to you for your presentation.
Thank you so much for having me and inviting me to this really important conference today. I plan on sharing some insights into how the UNFCCC works, specifically on how non-party stakeholders have participated in what is commonly acknowledged as a party-driven process. This basically boils down to the fact that countries or parties to the convention are the de facto primary decision makers when it comes to shaping our negotiated climate change outcomes and mandates, and are accountable to their electorate, having been elected as representatives and therefore responsible for creating and implementing any climate change related legislation. As you just heard in the introduction, COP5 in 1999 was my first COP, and yes, I am that old. And since then, I have witnessed a gradual change in the role of non-party stakeholder, or NPS for short, we do love our acronyms, in the climate change process, as well as an overall increase in the general levels of transparency. NPS have moved from being very much on the sidelines as mere observers, often prevented from accessing meeting rooms, to gradually being allowed into the negotiation space to watch but not engage. There was also a shift from a very strict block on any type of NPS interventions to now being able to make interventions at contact group meetings and plenary sessions, time permitting. There have also been some notable moves forward in the level of inclusion and engagement, such as at the annual Action for Climate Empowerment, or ACE dialogues, and the 2018 Talanoa dialogues. Last year, however, exceeded all expectations and built on these processes. NPS have actively participated in much greater numbers at a mandated event, namely the first global stocktake under the Paris Agreement, or another acronym, GST1. The global stocktake is a key element of the Paris Agreement and, as a ratchet mechanism, seeks to conduct a comprehensive assessment of collective progress towards its goals. It's a great opportunity to evaluate our efforts, identify gaps, and increase ambition in the fight against climate change so as to course correct and get on track. I say on track, we're not getting back on track because we were never on track. The technical dialogue is just one of the GST components and forms part of the technical assessment. We had 3 meetings, which were held at the 56th, the 57th and 58th sessions of the subsidiary bodies in 2022, so last year, and this year, 2023. We spent a total of 252 hours of meetings and discussions across a variety of formats, and these in very compressed timescales of 1 week at a time. So you can tell it was full on. We had 2 excellent co-facilitators, and they have been very innovative and creative. And with the assistance of the Climate Change Secretariat, they have managed to organize many novel events and formats. This is a first of its kind. And having supported the work of the GST TD for the past 18 months as a process manager, I can confirm that it has been a learning by doing experience. But what truly sets it apart from other mandated events and negotiations within the UNFCCC is enshrined in its decision 19 CMA 01. And I can imagine your eyes all glazing over when you hear a decision being quoted. But this one's important because it clearly states that they decided that the global stocktake will be a party-driven process conducted in a transparent manner. And here comes the important stuff, with the participation of non-party stakeholders. This has allowed for an unprecedented engagement of NPS in a process under the UNFCCC. Being a technical dialogue, there was already an inherent emphasis on having technical experts over political expertise throughout. This requirement automatically increased the number of NPS that needed to be involved. Respecting expertise, gender, and geographical balance, a number of technical experts and facilitators were selected by the co-facilitators to support them in the thematic areas of mitigation, which included response measures, adaptation, which included loss and damage, and the means of implementation comprising finance, capacity building, and technology, as well as systems transformation and holistic approaches, which were added as of the second meeting. PowerPoint slides, prompts, and topic notes were used to guide and focus the participants' discussions in World Cafe sessions, roundtables, breakout groups, and focused exchanges. The NPS experts and facilitators were also integral to contributing to the summary reports upon conclusion of each technical dialogue. Parties and non-party stakeholders were invited to make submissions on the arrangements for each of the technical dialogue meetings and general input to the global stocktakes, with non-party stakeholders making a total of 250 submissions, which, by the way, completely outdistance all of the party submissions. These serve to inform the planning of each meeting and to represent an online repository of good practices and lessons learned, as well as suggestions to bridge gaps and increase the level of ambition. Non-party stakeholders within the UNFCCC process are made up of accredited observer organizations, which includes UN system and its specialized agencies, intergovernmental organizations or IGOs, and non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and other non-credited non-party stakeholders. The NGOs were asked to self-select, identifying participants within each of the 9 constituencies. And this included business and industry NGOs, also known as bingos, one of my favorites, environmental NGOs, ENGOs, farmers, indigenous peoples organizations, local government and municipal authorities, research and independent NGOs or RINGOs, trade union NGOs, TUNGOs, women and gender and youth or YUNGOs, while all others were invited to an expression of interest process where the participants were selected using predetermined criteria and respecting gender and geographical balance. Now we come to the really important part. During the technical dialogue, and for the first time, non-party stakeholders made up for around 24% of the invited participants to events and secondary badges were issued to secure party delegates and non-party stakeholders seats at the table, guaranteeing that they weren't only being seen, but that their voices were heard and captured in the discussions. Seating at the opening and closing plenaries deviated away from the usual very defined and rigid setup, with parties and non-party stakeholders being mixed up in an a la carte arrangement. Again, first time that this has actually happened. Interventions at the opening and closing plenaries were arranged with groups of parties going first, as is always the case, but then followed by parties and non-party stakeholders alternating to take the floor. Again, a complete breakaway with the usual way of doing things. The co-facilitators invited those who had sent a submission to submit posters, and a total of 80 posters were received, with a large proportion coming from non-party stakeholders. Poster sessions were held in the first week of COP27 and at SB 58, And there were a large number of non-party stakeholders who turned up to comment on their posters and answer any questions, clarify whatever needed to be clarified. Finally, the co-facilitators invited people to participate in a creative space at COP27. Here they could showcase their climate action projects and ideas through any creative medium, such as videos, poems, song, theatre, or dance. And around 30 non-party stakeholders participated, and it was very warmly received. In conclusion then, the Global Stocktake has opened the way for non-party stakeholders to participate more fully and actively engage, as well as raising the bar and expectations for others to follow suit. Their participation ensures that the stocktake process is not confined to the closed doors of diplomacy, but becomes a truly inclusive and transparent endeavour. It has socialised the idea of non-party stakeholder participation, with many recognising the value add of multiple perspectives and calling for non-party stakeholders to continue to be included in the mix. The non-party stakeholder journey from the margins to the heart of the UNFCCC process is a testament to the power of collective action and the determination to address the climate crisis. Their participation is a significant milestone in the pursuit of accountability, transparency, and equitable climate solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Tracy. That was a brilliant insight, and yeah, an overview that is actually impossible to get unless you are really looking at it from behind the scenes and the amazing insights you have gotten over the years. Thank you so much.